What's up, everybody? Welcome into a brand new episode of Chat 10 Sports, where we're talking all things Tennessee sports and everything in between. Feel free to chat live with us right now, interact with us, or if you're listening after, connect with us through social media by finding us at Chat 10 Sports anywhere that you are on social. Also, if you're new to us, go to chat10.com and see everything we've got going on. But let's lock it in for a brand new show. Good evening, everybody. Good to be back here. Chat 10 Sports is live with you. I'm Trey Wynn, your host. Beautiful Monday. Beautiful, what is it, Monday? Yeah, it's still Monday.
Yeah.
Blurring around here. Long day. Hope you're doing great out there. Blake, Chase, how we doing? How was the weekend? Obviously, sports aside, any crazy fun stories from this last weekend, gentlemen?
I think I slept more this last weekend than I have in a long time. It was like just a super chillax weekend. Went to see Black Panther on Friday. Solid movie. That's all I'll say. A lot of good stuff. Good job doing a little tip of the cap to Chadwick Boseman.
Yes.
But then after that, I double TV'd it up both days, and it was great.
That's awesome. Chase, how are you doing? Or excuse me, Blake, how are you doing, sir?
Doing well, man. I slept in quite a bit myself. I'm still trying to get used to being back from Arizona. Coming back from 3 time zones away on the same weekend that the time change actually happens, probably not something I will readily do in my future. But it's been a good start to the week so far. It was a good, relaxing weekend. Had some friends in town, watched some good football, and the weather is finally feeling like mid-November out there. So had to crank the heat up.
Yeah, I feel that. I'm actually got my Titans toboggan. This is like, I tell you what, this Tennessee item right here insulates a man in a way that I don't know that I was prepared for. So I had to actually take it off a couple of times. But yeah, crazy week as far as weather, but obviously packed weekend. And I wanted to start our conversation off with kind of an icebreaker. If you're watching with us, wherever you are, if it's Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. On Twitter, we're trying to work out some kinks where we can't see chat. So if you want to chat actively with us, feel free to jump over to YouTube or Facebook to do that. But share the show for us if you don't mind. We're local out of here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, but chat10.com will tell you everything about us. But fellas, I wanted to start it off because today I saw a kind of a heartbreakingly bittersweet, relatable video from a boy out of LA, I think it was, but he's a Raiders fan. Obviously, disappointing loss for him, for the Raiders. As bad as they are, you still believe every week, and the kids learn the way of how it goes in the NFL. But I want to ask you guys a question. What was the moment as a kid, as a younger person, that you just got hooked, whether it was a bad loss or a crazy, awesome win? What team did you fall in love with, and what moment did you fall in love with just saying, I don't care how bad this hurts, I'm sticking it out? Because obviously as Tennesseans, we know loyalty like few do, right? I mean, the Vols, the Titans, we've been through some stuff. And I'll go first because mine, 2003. Let's go back in time here a little bit. If anybody was if anyone remembers the 03, I think it was the Patriots divisional round where the Titans lost 17-14. I remember a late drive for McNair trying to hit McNabb over the middle, fell short, and it was just one of those like devastating defeats. And I grew up with some of the greatest players, with obviously Eddie George, with Frank Wycheck, with Steve McNair, and I love those guys. But for some reason, to watch Brady, Belichick, and that empire begin, I was just like, hell no, we're gonna eventually get there one day. But guys, what were some moments growing up that, like that little boy getting his heart broken, where he just had to sit there and take a breath and said, I'm in it for the long haul with this team?
I don't think it was there was no like heartbreaking loss. It was just kind of like that moment where I remember I guess it was the day, like maybe Christmas Eve or Christmas Eve 1. The Titans played. This was like Eddie George. I remember Eddie George had a monster game, and it was like right there next to the Christmas tree, the gifts. I see Eddie just balling off the freaking field. I think it was the Ravens. I feel like it was that, but that could have just been me being hopeful that we beat the piss out of them. But yeah, that was my little moment. Like, dude, this team, and I really, really, really wanted like an Eddie George jersey, and I got it. And I was like watching him. And I do remember that Christmas, like getting that Eddie George jersey. So it was a little parlay, fun Christmas gift, and watch them dominate too.
Yeah. Well, you got to remember, I'm hoping it's the Titans, but if it's Alabama, we will endure this.
There are a few. There are a few to think of. When it comes to the Titans, I mean, I think a lot of us, when the team first moved in to town and had that magical run in 99, 2000, there's a lot of things that jump out there. One thing that sticks out with me, I believe it was the rematch of the Ravens and the Titans when a lot of these network broadcasts used to do these really cool lead-ins to the broadcast. And I'll never forget, it's on YouTube. I found it somewhere recently. And if I would have known this was the question, I would have had it queued up ready to go. But they had the lead-in basically being a press conference. And on one side was Ray Lewis, and on the other side was Steve McNair standing at the podium. And it led in with like the Bill Belichick in the locker room after they beat the Titans the first time. The infamous turn all the cameras off speech. And then, the camera dips, but it's still on. And he says, blink the Titans.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which led into that. And I mean, it's just the music pumping and everything. It would just make you want to run through a wall. That's something that jumps out with me for Titans. And then from the college ranks, I mean, I know, we joke about Alabama, Tennessee and stuff like that. But I mean, there were a lot of years when I was growing up where Alabama was not a good team. I mean, they won it all in 92, but they didn't do anything after that until the last decade. But I think me and my dad really bonded over Alabama football. And there were occasional wins in there that were really big deals. But I think one of my favorite memories from childhood is my dad worked at UAB in downtown Birmingham, and he worked near like the dental clinic there. And when I had braces, I would get dropped off for my appointment, and I would just hang out with my dad at work until it was time to go home. And we'd drive through downtown Birmingham on the interstate before we headed towards, my side of town near, less than an hour from Tuscaloosa. And I'll never forget, I was probably 10, 11 years old, maybe a little older. And we're on the left lane getting ready to exit on the interstate. And it's me and my dad in his truck. And I look over to my right, and there's this red Dodge van, like one of the old vans from like the 90s. It had no windows. It was like a work van almost. And I look over and I double take. And I look at my dad and I said, "Is that Gene Stallings?" It totally was Gene Stallings driving this red van next to us on the interstate. And I just thought it was so funny that me and my dad were like waving at him and stuff on the interstate. It's just one of those things you remember as a kid that he's like, "What do you mean that's Gene Stallings?" "Oh, that's Gene Stallings."
I have a Gene Stallings story as well. We were staying in Gulf Shores I can't remember this hotel, but it was brand new. It was so nice, man. And I see this car. I can't even tell you. I guess it was probably I was probably still in high school, maybe a little bit older, but somewhere in that, high school, college range. So a little ways back, and I see this car, and it's like this Audi. I think it was like an Audi A12. It was a monster. This thing was loaded. This was $100 and something thousand car. I was like, this thing's beautiful. Who the hell owns this thing? And we're going up and down. We're got the kids out in the lazy river, and we're all kind of hanging out. I got my two nieces, and they're just doing kid stuff. But in between there, me and Uncle Chuck would go back and forth and have to go get some beers and stuff, and bring the cooler down by the lazy river, of course. Well, Chuck goes up, and casual comes back down, a couple suitcases for he and Pops, and he's got this big shit-eating grin on his face, and he goes, "Well, hell, I just rode up the elevator with Gene Stallings." He goes, "What a day." And funny enough, that was his car. And I was like, of course, Gene Stallings drives like my favorite car that I've ever seen to this point in my life.
Yeah,
so like, cool,
loaded.
Cool.
Gene Stallings gets around, I guess. He's
he goes out to Gulf Shores. He's one of us,
Yeah, he is
one of us lowly folk.
But hey, Craig Story coming in here saying losing Super Bowl 34 by a foot when the Ravens beat us in the 2000 both times. That rivalry that you mentioned, Blake, the Ravens, Titans, like that's classic NFL rivalry. Obviously, I think that continues forward today. Speaking of rivals, David Deering is here to enjoy some great conversation with the Colts, which we will talk plenty about Colts because, we're going to introduce a new segment here called Give Me a Blake, where Blake's going to throw some shade at folks with some horrible takes. So stick around for that. But let's start it off, guys. College football weekend. Tennessee came back with a force, and I am elated. I am happy. I know some people are not happy because some people think they're laying it on too thick with 66-24. I want to get y'all's take on that. But were you happy, just to throw this out for everybody watching with us, and guys, give us your thoughts as well. Were you happy with the bounce back, obviously coming off of what looked to be a devastating kind of shell-shocking loss to Georgia? Tennessee, like they do kind of start slowly, but here we are, and 66-24 was the outcome. Chase, I'm going to start with you, man. What did you think of the entire game? Because Hendon looked good, and a little Joe Milton action in the backside never hurt nobody. But what were your thoughts? What stuck out to you for the victory over the Mizzou Tigers?
Actually the final score. I mean, I know people are talking about the pouring on. We'll talk about that in a minute, but they really came out in that second quarter and established dominance, and it looked really good. They threw the ball over the yard. Hyatt was mad at himself. I think he had 7 for 164, 184, something like that, and 2 tutties. And then he was like, I had a bad day. He had 2 drops. But there were some times that this group, you're like, man, if they can look like this, but against everybody but Georgia, it's making a big case for them to get in. And as we alluded to, style points will matter come tomorrow night and the rest of these Tuesdays we got coming up. So pour it on thick, boys. You're going to have to, because USC did it and might as well do it on Saturday as well.
Yeah, I want to say hi to Nicole real quick because we moved on from topics, but she was saying the 1 yard line and not giving it to Marshawn as the Pacific Northwestern, that we appreciate you joining. Yeah, but Chase, for me, I mean, I agree as far as, and that's the conflict I think we can talk about with pouring it on too much. I think Tennessee's going to go over the top and convincing whomever they need to that this is one of the 4 best teams in the country, to make the playoff. But Blake, as someone who keeps up with the Vols, obviously Alabama fan, but what were your thoughts? I don't know if anything stuck out because, and maybe this is my take. Tennessee, in some of those games, UT Martin was one where it's like slow start. They came back pretty quick and scored. It was 7-7, and then the Vols just kind of opened up, and it seemed to be similar. But obviously 66-24 was a bit of a different, scorecard. But like, what'd you think, man?
One of the moments that sticks out to me, I had visiting friends this weekend, and one of them's a big Tennessee fan. And so we sat and watched a good portion of the game. And there was one part of the game, I think in the second half, where his quote was, "How do you leave Hyatt that wide open over and over again?" I said, "Joey, you're talking to an Alabama fan right now. I'm still not ready to talk about it." Because we couldn't figure that out either. Looked very impressive. I mean, they looked exactly how they needed to look coming off of a heartbreaking loss that they had to Georgia. I still think they're in a prime position, and I really don't think they're going to need that much help. I mean, the teams that they need to jump over, you have a couple that are going to be playing each other, and just, conference reputation, you'd have to be out of your mind to not put Tennessee in the top 4. As far as the people who had a problem with the score at the end, I mean, you're not playing an out-of-conference opponent. You're not playing a D2 school. You're not playing an FCS team. You're playing another SEC team. I mean, it's their job to stop you. And in a conference and in a format where style points do matter at the end of the year, and they want to see you consistently be dominant to put you in that Final 4, I mean, you really have no choice. So to those people, I say, just worry about yourself.
Yeah, let's take some comments here from Craig coming in. The Vols looked sluggish on defense for 2.5 quarters. Once the Hyatt touchdown happened, it changed everything, and they woke up. That was actually something, throughout, and this is watching Hendon Hooker from last week to this week. I think he got his feet wet in the first half of the game, and it's good to see them kind of take it and hit the spark. Hugh Gray coming in, good to see you, sir. Tennessee has to run up the score. Dominance is needed to sway the committee. We've talked about how they like USC. They like the Ohio States, which Ohio State, Michigan is going to be massive. Craig coming back, also ESPN's Bear. Clearly didn't stand for the Friday and watched USC run it up on Colorado. I don't understand this.
Not to be mistaken with Chat 10 Sports Bear.
Right, yes, right. Exactly.
Right here.
That's awesome.
But all that to say, I don't see what the offensive part is of running up the score, because I don't know. Like you said, Blake, it's your job, Mizzou, as an SEC competitor, to stop us. Like, we're one of the best teams in the conference. New thing to be able to say, but Mizzou has dropped off. And what's crazy, Eli Drinkowitz, as an offensive mind or whatnot, just can't get much going. 24 points. I know when we hit that mark with them on Saturday, I was like, well, Georgia also allowed 22 points, and so it's like, all right, good team. They can put up some points, but it's not one of those things that, for the Vols that I don't think they need to worry about anything but themselves getting their stride going, because when it comes and the lights are on and that playoff logo is on your chest, you got to make it count. And I don't think that they want to hesitate to get to the dance, make it fun, but also make it a worthwhile thing. So it's one of those things for me. I'm all for that, man. I'm all for the ability just to throw it on. I don't know who's saying that or where it's coming from, Chase. What do you think?
To be honest, it's a lot of Georgia fans. That was the big mark of this weekend. It was a lot of Georgia fans that
Get out of here with that.
I think there's a lot of lingering going on, because I don't know if they want to do that game again on a neutral site, because the offense is scary, man. The offense, if they figure it out, and maybe you look at it from a perspective of crowd noise is not going to be a factor, maybe, or whatever you want to take from it, but it'll be very tough for round 2 if it were to happen.
Well, to throw back to Nicole's comment here about Marshawn Lynch, I would like to tell Georgia fans to HMD, if you know what that means, as far as Marshawn Lynch. Because here's the thing: if you're losing sleep over the Vols right now, that tells me that you are not as secure as you thought you were a couple Saturdays ago, right? And I, as much as we talked about Georgia fans with Rainey, Chase, you and I have talked about it, the amount of Georgia fans willing to step up and just talk a bunch of noise after a great, hey, golf clap, great win at home with 92,000 strong.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, the neutral site is going to play a massive factor. And I feel like in all of these games, in credit, if teams travel, awesome. Pull out your 4-0.
And for Georgia, they will be playing in Atlanta that game also.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be a home game for them. Basically, I will say if it is Tennessee, it'll be pretty dang close.
Yeah.
Maybe Ohio State, but no, they won't play Ohio State. That wouldn't probably work out. There's a lot of scenarios. I've got a really cool article coming out. Like it's gonna be the Royal Rumble for the 4th seed. Nice. I think that's what it's gonna work out to be, and I got that coming out. I want to take a little things from tomorrow night in the playoff, but I'm going to send that out Wednesday. It's going to be a good one. I will say, to go back to Nicole, that was a tough one for Oregon. Oregon pushed their way out. And Penix Jr., he had an awesome game. He's an Indiana transfer, and that dude lit it up. That was another fun game that I just kind of stayed up and watched. I was like doing that thing where I was flipping 4 different games on at one time. It was great.
Talent.
But as Craig mentioned, Mizzou was the 13th best ranked defense, which they weren't 13th in high school football last year. So credit to them for really stepping up. Drinkwitz even mentioned, he's like, it's our job to stop them on the running it up part 2. So just to cover all bases there, Joe Milton's got a freaking cannon. I don't know if y'all saw that touchdown at the end, but dude, this guy,
Bazooka Joe, baby,
dude, your boy can sling it. And he had more offense than Will Levis this week.
Our boy Will Levis, that we just continue to milk it. I actually saw a mock draft this week from NFL, or I think it was NFL Draft Network or whatnot. He's going 7th. What is it, Colts, baby? Yeah. Are we doing this?
How perfect is that? How perfect would that
sign me up?
Jeff Saturday is going to pick that boy up.
Yeah. No,
but the Oregon loss definitely helped you guys, having them up there as well. It looks like, Bo Nix has been having an incredible run since getting out of the dumpster fire that is Auburn. And, he reverted a little bit. He had a couple of really bad throws. And, I know that the so-called quack attack has been getting the job done, but you cannot stumble in a conference out west like that, because the leash is a lot shorter in a conference like that where you don't have as many quality win opportunities.
And guys, I feel like it's going to continue to shake out, because TCU getting close with Texas. Obviously, we thought that would probably go in Texas' favor. I'm not. If TCU is going to be there, then they deserve to be there. But I still just, the undefeated part for me, I get it. Undefeated does not always represent the best 4 teams in the country, and that's where I get caught up with it. And I know we could linger on the Vols, I'm sure, and talk about I'm convinced. I'm convinced that we're going to see the Vols, and like Blake said, they're not going to need a ton of help. But I do want to move to this because I think last week we spent a bunch of time on college football and the Vols. So maybe we'll spend a shorter time this week. But talking about college football playoff seed scenarios, I know we want to get to that. The shakedown with Oregon and other teams, kind of, were there any other massive losses or shakeups as far as playoff implications this weekend?
There was a few things that like wound up happening. Like Notre Dame continuing to win actually adds to other teams. Like if you look at it from perspective of like the ACC or even Ohio State, here's why. Because like Notre Dame is now Ohio State's good loss or good win. You know, like it's another good win besides Penn State. Yeah, and UCLA losing, that's going to be another part of it where if you're trying to decide between USC and if you're trying to decide between any of the Pac-12 teams, then do you really count UCLA as a good win? Because then you're talking about like, would you put in, all right, so let's say LSU wins out. 2-loss LSU team. Yes, you have to jump Tennessee, which let's just say that was like, what if they decide that's what they want to do? SEC champ LSU beats Georgia, has beaten Bama, and has beaten Ole Miss. You got the big number one there. You got a really good top 10 team, which I think Bama's going to wind up being eventually right up there at 10, 9, something like that. And then you have Ole Miss, who's probably going to be top 15. So would you take the USC team that only has an okay UCLA win? Maybe a redemption factor of Utah? Like there won't be that many good wins like where you take their one loss against already Utah versus the two-loss LSU team. So then you're starting to like debate. Then you're going to look at Tennessee, and their big one is, for me, this is all in the article. I kind of break it down team by team on the tier system there. Do you think the committee looks at it as, hey, we've already seen this potential 1-4 matchup, Tennessee, Georgia. That was like your pseudo playoff game, more so than even a Michigan, Ohio State, because their resumes aren't as good. So you're not going to be able to put in the one-loss Michigan or Ohio State team. But would you pick Tennessee or some other team when you're like, oh, they've already played, so we've already seen this? Do you guys think the committee would kind of choose that way?
That's soft to me. I don't know about you, Blake. That to me, it feels like as close and as unbiased as I can be as a Tennessee fan. You know, Georgia is outright the number one best team as of right now. For Tennessee to have gone down there, yes, we got our teeth kicked in. That should not be an indictment against the Vols, though, in my mind. But the 5 ranked opponents, the offensive production, like Heisman candidate, you know, I don't see how you could, even for the sake of your own like revenue streams, like you want the sexiest teams and the most capable teams to convince those fan bases to go after it, because I don't look at teams like, I mean, Michigan or Ohio State's going to fall out, and I think it'll probably be Ohio State, and I think everything's going to shift up one spot, and whoever loses that Big Ten game is going to fall right into the 4th spot or 5th spot or however it's going to shake out. But yeah, I think Tennessee has to be that team of saying, even for the sake of like comeback, you know, of the year, where Tennessee, like, we're talking about this, Blake. We're talking about putting a tattoo on my butt cheek of the for the sake of the Vols winning
one more win.
Yeah,
one more win.
I mean, Scouts honor. Just let's line it up. Probably get have a crowd about it. But it's one of those things. Like Tennessee is too good of a story to be a flash in the pan to put up the points they do to beat teams the way that they're doing. So again, like, I mean, like Heupel, put the foot on the throat. Don't look at the scoreboard. Keep going. I love that mentality, because you know everyone else in that playoff race is going to do the same damn thing to you if they have the opportunity.
Yeah, and especially if you have that.
Go ahead and schedule the appointment. I think I might have to, Craig.
Put it in there, baby. We're gonna pick out a good one too. Something like we might go to prison for this. This might be a prison tattoo. But I will say this: if the Vols just keep that number 1 overall offense, that is a hard stat to get away with. Now, if things do happen, like if TCU loses, they will definitely put Tennessee in as a 3 seed. That's perfect. Like I don't agree with this because Carolina it would be a dream scenario to have both my teams in this, but they have one of the worst resumes possible. Now I will say this, speaking of that Notre Dame, those pesky Irishmen, I kept going down this freaking list in this article, and I'm like, those pesky Irish bastards.
Mm-hmm.
They keep adding to this because Carolina's loss doesn't look as bad as their only loss. They have a Heisman candidate. Drake May looks good. The blue, like, I mean, it's a bunch of BS, but it's the truth. Like, it adds to it. And now that's Clemson's only. So it's kind of one of those deals where can Clemson sneak in if teams don't look that impressive? You know, it's a long ways away, but I will say, if you're a conspiracy theorist, two teams that you have to worry about, USC and Clemson. If the committee wanted some fun, they want that West Coast crowd real hard because you'd take any LA market you can get in the playoffs. But there are some sneaky ways, and those Irish guys playing pretty well can make your wins better now, like adding a good win for Ohio State and adding an okay loss for North Carolina.
See, Clemson has not been the same Clemson for quite some time now. And they had a few missteps earlier this year and really should have lost more than the one game that they've lost so far. We've all watched these games. The committee has watched these games. I mean, they could make up some ground with people, beating each other up in front of them, but do you move them up that far? I don't know. I don't think Clemson, you can't.
TCU would have to lose, and that's where it gets interesting.
If they move Clemson up that far, I better hear the same crowd that complains about Alabama being ranked too high just as vocal about Clemson being up there. As far as where I see it landing, I don't think you leave Tennessee out, just because, we don't want to see the same matchup. You might change the seeding a little bit. As you mentioned, Ohio State's going to play Michigan. I see that one playing out the opposite way that was mentioned earlier. I think Ohio State will probably grab the edge in that one. Georgia's your clear number one. I would say Ohio State at number two. If TCU, I really hope TCU can stay the course and not blow this. They have come so close so many times, and it would be good to see a different name in there. But I think with what Tennessee has done, Tennessee would leapfrog TCU. So I could see ideally Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Tennessee 3, and TCU 4.
See, that's
because until Michigan shows me, when is Michigan going to finally win the big game and not stumble? And especially Ohio State. I mean, when? I'm amazed. If Jim Harbaugh were at Alabama and lost to Auburn that many times, I mean, heck, we did it with Bill Curry back in the day. Bill Curry won a ton of games, and he just never could beat Auburn, and they fired him. They just didn't stand for it. So it's as much as we like to be told by the national media that Ohio State and Michigan is the greatest rivalry in sports. No, it's not. It's a good one, but it's not the best one.
Yeah, the last week of this whole season's going to be really interesting for the sake of even this week too, like you just mentioned. USC has to play UCLA, which they're going to be fired up. I mean, if they knock each other out, I like what you're saying, because even Rainey last week joining us talking about how he thinks the Vols will hit that 3 spot. Chase, your point of, do you want to see the number 1, the number 4 rematch? I think that's got to be, and people have said I would rather see a first round 1 versus 4 matchup for Tennessee and Georgia than the final be that game. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think for the sake of the college football playoff, because a lot of y'all are saying, I want to throw these comments up here like Hugh. TV wants a West Coast team. Also, gambling sites want a big name West Coast team in the mix. That's a huge factor, obviously, because we're all lining our pockets in some way, and especially ESPN and college football, everyone that can. But realistically, I mean, if USC falls, they really have no chance there as far as even squeezing somebody in. That's why I think that Oregon losing this weekend was big for that West Coast side, because if it was going to be anybody to get there and to have a convincing resume, to convincing like, hey, we've been here, we also got our teeth kicked in by Georgia, so we deserve to be up at the top as well. But I think I agree with Blake. I don't know, again, however, that Ohio State Michigan, is that game at Ann Arbor, or is that at Columbus in Ohio? Because that's going to be a big factor. Like you mentioned, if Harbaugh can get past that game and not have that crazy last second Michigan State fumbled punt for a touchdown type of outcome where it all just
Ohio State
at Ohio State
at the big house.
Yeah,
The horseshoe. Sorry.
Incredible. I feel like I've missed some good comments here because there's been a lot of activity, which we appreciate. Like Craig mentioned, Clemson being at was 4 in the first poll, just something to keep in mind. Seems like they have it pretty easily there as well. Tennis, Craig again saying TCU needs to lose. I want that for them, but if they do, it'd probably be a guaranteed spot for Tennessee. Let's see here. David Deering coming in here. Jim Harbaugh, 2023 Colts. Coach, I'm speaking it into existence. Hey, you never know.
Well, they want Saturday. They want to keep him.
I don't know. They got Saturday there. I've heard that they're looking at Vanderjack for special teams and Bob Sanders for the defensive coordinator. So
I can't wait for the offseason Peyton's as offensive coordinator rumors.
Oh, my gosh. Or just him to be the GM or something like that.
I will say this. One last thing for USC is they can gain the most ground. They have the best rest of the season schedule as far as like picking up good wins. They don't have really any good ones right now, to be honest. Like they're okay, not great, but they can gain the most steam. And like how I think it's going to be a little bit similar to basketball where you guys remember hearing this in selection day. It's like, what have you done for me lately?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the scary part. If you're a Tennessee fan or if you're in the mix of that 4 slot is going to be pretty tough. If everybody stays course, those top 3, winner of Michigan, Ohio State, we'll just say that's kind of one. But TCU, that game winner, and Georgia to stay the course gets a little dicey because then you're looking at, you want to talk about monster star power. USC's got it. Caleb, the sexiest thing you've seen since sliced bread with what's his face, Lincoln Riley going over there. Jordan Addison's last year's Blitnikoff Award winner. They've got this guy named Tooley who leads the freaking nation in sacks. Like they've got studs all around. And like, as our boy said, Hugh was spot on. Gambling, TV, they want the West Coast and they want to see if it stacks up and it adds another conference.
I think it's just such a steep hill for them to climb with a UCLA team, Notre Dame the following week, and then I would assume they're playing Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game.
It should be Oregon or Utah, and either one. If it's Utah, weirdly enough, it gives them their bounce back redemption tour, and it'd be a top 10 win.
Yeah,
so you get a lot out of these games,
right? And that's what. Yeah, I agree with. Like if they make those games count and they make it through that gauntlet, ooh. Yeah, I want to see the odds as far as like what the actual like top 4 would be as far as betting odds and whomever would land those things. But any last thoughts just in general like that stuck out from this last week from college football? I thought Ole Miss, Alabama was
such a good game,
a great watch. Which this makes me ask this question to you guys because Zach Reagan of A to Z Sports today put it up. If you guys were in Hugh Freeze's spot, or even Lane Kiffin's spot, do you stay at Ole Miss? Do you go to Auburn? Do you look at a different team? I mean, what's the situation there? What's the best scenario? Because Blake, I know you probably don't want Lane Kiffin coming over to Auburn.
Look, here's the thing. Alabama, Auburn, yes, we don't get along, but there are varying degrees of the hatred that go back and forth. I fall more on the end of the spectrum where I really don't pay much attention to Auburn until they play each other. Mm-hmm. I think they would be foolish to not just consider the idea of keeping Cadillac around. He has excited the team. He has excited the fan base. He's bringing a lot of good energy to the sideline. I think it would be silly if they didn't at least entertain the idea. Do I think Lane Kiffin would be a more qualified, better quality coach? Probably, but it wouldn't do anything to help Lane's reputation as running away for the next big thing. Mm-hmm. I think that he brings a lot of baggage that a lot of teams wouldn't want to put up with, especially with a program like Auburn where the boosters notoriously sabotage the program by meddling with all of the decision making. So I really think that they should entertain the idea of keeping Cadillac around, but Lane would be a moron if he tried to pull this.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chase.
Yeah, I was just thinking, man, like that situation down there is awful. It's awful. And if you're going to leave, like he's got a good thing going with Ole Miss. You were a top 15 team in the country, and you were last year too. Like, keep going. You got a fan base that loves you. I think you can recruit just as well there. It'll be maybe just a notch above what you could, or notch below, I guess, what you could do at Auburn, but it's not much. You can make it what you are. I mean, it's the history of Auburn's there. I think it's just a touch above as far as facilities and, as far as some of the things go, history like that, just a notch above all this, but it's not a huge jump. And those kids don't really care about that much anymore. Like it's a little different
Mm.
now. I think he can recruit from Ole Miss. They got the flash, they got the offense, they can do stuff. Like he's way better off to stay at Ole Miss.
Yeah, I did say my response on Twitter was to Zach Reagan was saying, if I were to choose, if it's me, I'm taking the Auburn job. Aside from all these true facts of like the crazy boosters and like Hugh Gray says, Auburn is a place coaches go to get paid big money to quit, as he corrected. Yeah, for sure. But in the same spirit of the Count of Monte Cristo, Lane Kiffin was left for dead by Nick Saban. And if he came back and started beating and competing with Alabama, and all of a sudden you see Saban go out of the, off of the top of the dynasty, I don't know. I love Lane Kiffin. I love the fact that he just doesn't take all this stuff so type A seriously. And it's like, hey, come to the games, because we don't want to have like a high school football game anymore where there's like, 20 or 30% attendance or whatnot. But no, Lane Kiffin, and that's one thing too we can talk about when the time comes, is where he lands, if he stays, Hugh Freeze, the whole coaching carousel. And as David said earlier, maybe Jim Harbaugh becomes the Colts' new head coach, as well as we have some other ones here. Full circle, Andrew Luck returns to the Colts offense as OC and leads.
Oh yes, I've seen that one go float around. I love that.
But let's move forward, guys. Obviously, some NFL talk. Lots to discuss, which we're going to move somewhat quickly because I want Blake to have his opportunity to throw some shade here. But obviously, the Titans. I mean, it seemed like to me, man, on a hope and a prayer that the scrubs behind the scrubs and all the depth players came out for the defense. Just jump in from the top. What stuck out as the number one thing for you, as far as, and Craig's already coming out here swinging. We all know it. We've talked about it relentlessly. We'll get to Todd Downing. But Blake, what was the biggest takeaway for you as far as the Titans hanging on and beating the Russell Wilson-led Broncos yesterday?
The biggest takeaway for me is that the Titans defense is the complete opposite of the Titans offense as far as depth. The Titans can lose one or two little pieces on the offensive side and the whole thing falls apart. But we're seeing names on this defense who have not done, you wouldn't be able to recognize them by picture or by name, do these great things, because, a lot of bettors wanted to stay away from the defensive bets the other day, but they lost a lot of money. I mean, this is a defense that's tied for fourth in the NFL with 29 sacks. I mean, we're just a couple years removed from, laying into them on here because they were one of the worst in the league as far as getting to the quarterback.
Yeah.
They currently lead the league in allowing the fewest third down conversions, and they rank 8th for points allowed. They've had at least one interception in 7 straight games. They've also had at least 3 sacks in 6 straight games. I mean, this is a defense. This is one of those defenses that you hear you can have a middling offense and you can have a defense that can bail them out. I think that's exactly what happened here. And since week 3, Mike Herndon pointed this out earlier, great stat. Since week 3, the Titans have allowed a league low 427 rushing yards. And the second on that list is the 49ers at 609. So nearly 180 more yards. That's the big gap between 1 and 2. So this defense is really getting the job done while the offense is trying its best to get healthy. And we hope that we would get more out of Tannehill yesterday, and we got just enough.
Yeah, for sure.
Just enough. That's all you needed yesterday. You needed a decent Tanny game yesterday. Walker had 2 sacks. Super impressive. Also, to give our boy Mike Herndon some credit, did you guys see his power rankings, the AFC defenses? Number 1 is the Titans defense. Number 2 is the Titans backups.
It's true. At least for yesterday.
It's the freaking truth. I mean, look at the guys that the Titans defense had out of yesterday, and look who stepped up. It's so impressive. But my God, boys, can they keep winning this ugly?
Well, let me point out some stats. Dylan Cole had a sack yesterday. Mario Edwards Jr. 1 sack. Naquan Jones, and if you don't know these guys, we do because we keep up with this team this way.
That's
1.5
That's
sacks
the
for
reason.
DeMarcus Walker. 1.5 sacks for Rashad Weaver. No Jeff Simmons. Don't see Danico Autry getting a sack. He played, but no sack for him. But yeah, I as far as them winning ugly like this, man, the whole idea of it ain't beautiful, but it's pretty or whatnot that Vrabel said, like, I don't care how it looks. I don't care what it sounds like. If we squeeze out these teams now, this is my predicament right now. And I put this up on Twitter today because I was just kind of sitting, thinking and prepping for the show. 6-3. We have 3 losses right now. One, of course, was a horrible blowout to the Buffalo Bills, who have now become, third ranked in their own division behind the Jets and the Giants.
Dolphins.
Dolphins, excuse me.
Hate to see it.
Yeah, but the Giants obviously losing to them by 3 points or 1 point, and then losing to Kansas City on a 3-point overtime loss. Like 7-2 for the Kansas City Chiefs, 7-2 for the Giants right now, 6-3 for the Bills after yesterday. And that's where I get stuck. I'm like, look, Vrabel is going to constantly be that kryptonite for other teams because in Nathaniel Hackett, there were times it's like, bro, you're rushing. You don't know what you're doing out here, trying to alleviate. And again, because of the depth issue, because Tannehill coming off the bench, obviously Derrick Henry couldn't get cooking, but Vrabel continues to find a way. And it's things like this for me. Dylan Cole laid the out of somebody.
Yes, he did.
Those types of if you're in a game, if you're playing a game and someone, just the momentum that carries. We saw that from Tennessee, Georgia, where Tennessee just couldn't stop the bleeding and it all kept rolling. But for guys like Andrew Adams, again, we were sitting up at tailgate like, who is this dude and where did he come from? And then we got other guys that's like, we couldn't beg for a sack 2 seasons ago. And now guys like DeMarcus Walker, who, cool depth guy, but just production after we saw Bud Dupree gone, Jeffrey Simmons gone, Cunningham gone. Like, it seemed like everybody was out praying for the defense to perform well. And I mean, not that Russell Wilson is what he was, but obviously, Cortland Sutton is not a guy to overlook or anything like that. But at one point, Kevin Byard, a couple other actual starters were on the field, and everybody else was depth guys. It's like, hey, salute, because it's one thing, Blake, like you said, they are the anti-hero of the offense of like, you have to carry them. They can carry your team and they need you to carry them. But for me, I think the biggest surprise was Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. Because after the comment, and I told Blake I'd play this, so we'll make a quick snippet of it. Everyone knows where I'm going.
We just go back to work. No one was saying this, earlier in the year, when we were making plays. So I'm just going to ignore all that and go back to work and just try to get better and make the plays that we need to make. That's all it is. It was a bad game, had a few bad plays, and we just got to go back to work.
All right. Let me get a little rant going here because here's what I'm realizing. John Robinson has tried to find Vrabel guys, Titans guys who are selfless players. He's extended the guys that have worked, and he has let the guys go that have not. Cool. But you have guys on this roster like NWI who are going to show up with their lunch pail, all the analogies you can think of. But he is the guy that Vrabel probably drools over of just showing up and doing it and having a great game like that for him. I loved it. To see Chig get involved, to see Hooper finally get involved more. Obviously, Burks, they went to him one of the first passes of the game, and it's like, hey, that's great priority. But here's the thing now. If the Titans can really start to get the offense figured out, work around the kinks of Todd Downing, that's the one hang up for me is just how good is this team on defense, but how self-inflictedly stupid, if it's even a proper grammatical phrase. Like Todd Downing is almost overbearing, and you can't even overcome the issues on offense because, again, like we've seen route designs, but tight ends having to say to help the offensive line because they're so bad. If Henry's off the field, they're passing. It's like there's so many complexities to it. And sorry to be long-winded about it, but it's like, what can Todd Downing do given what the situation is? And take play calling aside, like this team has some strange things to work around offensively. So it's like we can't sit here and say Todd Downing, you're trash, because again, we have a 6-3 team right now that has lost to 3 great teams that are, if they're not leading their division, they're close in the race behind it. So I don't know what y'all's thoughts are as far as if the Titans, Blake, I know Chase, you asked the question, but do you think they can continue to win ugly like this? Because we've got Packers Thursday, maybe a couple easier teams coming up. Maybe it's that same type of thing that the Vols have of just blow some teams out, get your confidence going. But what are you thinking? What are your thoughts there, Blake?
I still think they're underperforming. I have yet to see Todd Downing put together a full game. He's good for about 50% of a game on play calls, and then it's almost like he panics and goes back to the old game plan, which is the predictable game plan that we've all known and grown to hate over these past couple of years. Some weird stats that I've discovered. Tennessee has actually scored 2 fewer points than the defense has allowed all year. We've scored 166 points. We've allowed 168 points. We're last in yards per game at 282. We became very one-dimensional the other day, which we're not used to seeing. Derrick Henry couldn't get it going against a really tough defense, granted. 53 yards on 19 carries. What I don't understand, and we saw a little bit of it yesterday, and it worked very well. I have no idea why we're not involving the tight ends more in the game plan. Chig was only out there on 20 of 62 snaps. How are you only going to have Chig in for a third of the game?
Yeah.
When, he had 2 targets yesterday, and one of them was like a 40-yard gain. I don't understand how you don't involve him more in the offense. Cooper had a great game yesterday, 5 catches on 7 targets, had some really tough contested catches out there. So some things I say they can improve, involving the tight ends more. You can't become one-dimensional. I'll say that's exactly what we're making a living doing on the defensive side, by shutting down the run and making the opposing team one-dimensional. But you don't want to become one-dimensional yourself, or you're not going to be able to keep this going.
Yeah.
No.
Agreed. And Chase, what do you thought, man?
Well, I was thinking, to touch on part of what you were saying, Trey, is in Craig and I's group text with our buddy Chill, he said there has to be somebody fired this offseason that's in the strength and conditioning program. This is multiple years where it seems like the Titans are the most unhealthy team week in and week out. I mean, this is bad numbers. I don't know what the finals are. I'll be honest, I don't keep up with other teams. Like you know who's injured, but you don't know quite the volume like you get with our guys. But damn, dude, like, how is this happening? And yes, does that probably cause some issues with play calling for Todd? Yeah. But dang, dude, that the health and wellness of this team is awful week in and week out. Like, Ben Jones finally got hurt because you guys got a concussion now.
Well, what about Randy Bullock yesterday? Randy Bullock got hurt in warm-ups. They found out 10 minutes before the game that Randy Bullock is not going to be able to perform all of his duties. So you have Stonehouse. Like, I think we made it through halfway through the game before any of us at the watch party realized, like, wait a minute, that's Stonehouse kicking out there.
Yeah.
Stonehouse, by the way, gosh.
Incredible.
Love me some Stonehouse. By the way, did you notice that his brother punts for Missouri? I did not realize that until I was watching the Tennessee-Missouri game the other day.
That is him. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Comes from a punting family. Him and his brother punt. I think our Stonehouse played at Colorado State. The brother plays at Mizzou. His dad was a punter, and their uncle was a punter too. So, just really cool how that runs in the family. But he had a 54-yard average again yesterday and a 74-yard long kick on the day. That's awesome. But to go back to the strength and conditioning, how does your kicker hurt himself in a warm-up? I mean,
I don't know.
Not a great sign.
Randy is the smaller of the thicker kickers. I don't know if you saw Missouri's kicker this weekend.
Yeah.
Your boy ain't missed a meal at the old cafeteria. So,
speaking of hurting yourself, the Titans, I mean, again, Henry had a drop or 2. Just drops continue to play the team. Obviously, Jeff Swaim, Geoff Swaim, I'm going to mispronounce his name on person. 1 target, no catches, no yards. Put the guy on the back burner. And like you said, increase the count for Chig, increase the count for Austin Hooper. Austin Hooper is that guy. He might not be the Chig where you can line him up as an H-back or a tight end or, even in a slot if you really wanted to. But Hooper's the guy that seems he's coming into his own of just being that guy of put it in my vicinity, in my radius, and I'm going to come down with it. And typically, I mean, I want to see him and Tannehill kind of get that groove back. But also, speaking of a drop, Malik Willis comes in for 1 again, stupid play call. Like, was it a fake reverse? Like,
It's like a read option.
Read option. Yeah.
So bad.
It's just like, if it's not as evident as it should be, even from a shotgun setting where the kid might be more used to it, don't ask him to do that stuff. Like, that's the second time now that Todd's like, hey, go out there and try this, bud. Watch this, guys. It's like you're setting the kid up for failure, where it's like, hey, how to destroy a kid's confidence. Help him fumble.
There you go. Twice.
How to go, yeah. And we're sitting here trying to develop a quarterback, which, again, coming from Houston to Kansas City, he made big jumps. It wasn't the prettiest thing, but from how bad it was in Houston to where it was in KC. All that to say, drop balls. I mean, we got to make things work, because as much as I want Todd Downing out, this team still can be better on offense, and it can be better even for guys like Derrick Henry. When in the passing game, he wants to get better. Again, if you're not running the ball and you have 50 yards, I'm surprised they got the win out, because statistically this team is like 19-3 or whatever now. If he's over 100 and somehow they pull it out. So all that to say, I mean, I want to ask you guys this, because we do this routine, and not to go into a full segment, but after what you saw on Sunday, and this goes back to my original tweet and conversation of, are the Titans real or fake in the sense of being Super Bowl contenders? Because finding ways to win, as long as you get there, which we saw from the Bengals last year, you might have the worst O-line in the league, but if you get there and you beat a couple teams and you make it to the Super Bowl, that's all that matters. But do you guys consider the Titans real or fake when it comes to Super Bowl contention?
I say real. I think the defense is good enough. We are seeing some numbers put out from this crew that we've not seen in a while. If they can stay hot, if they can continue to succeed as a unit, I think that, the offense is not great. The offense is, bottom half of the league. But I think that, as Burks is what? I
said that's very generous of you to say that.
I know.
Yes.
They are bottom half of the league. I didn't say how close to the bottom of the half. But no, I mean, you can overcome a lot with a really good defense, and I think the offense will only get a little bit better as they realize, hopefully, what's not working, and as Burks kind of works his way back in and knocks off some of the rust. Had a couple of good plays the other day. Kind of security, the ball security on Burks, I'm a really big fan of, because you have multiple people trying to tackle him and trying to punch that ball out, and he is bound and determined to not lose that ball. So sure. I think they're real, but I think it's more because of the defense than the offense.
Titans real or fake Super Bowl contenders? That's a tough one, because if you were going to look at it and you were going to hear any of the experts say, the two niche things they always say are defense and running the football. That's what wins you Super Bowls. But the Titans have one of the worst receiving cores in the NFL. Yes, Burks is back. NWI played really well. One game. It just, they can't move the ball when they really need to. And that kind of hurts. So I just don't know. They've not really beaten a good team yet. So I'm going to have to see that before I give them any sort of fan or fraud. But I will say they're a little bit fraudish right now, because they're beating the teams they're supposed to. I'll give them that. Yeah. But outside of that, man, they just, I don't see them beating anybody past the first round.
That's where I get stuck too. But yeah, I just think that, and even right now, I know obviously they've got the division on lock, basically. Obviously the Colts are at 4-5, and we can get into the whole Jeff Saturday. I love Bill Cowher, and CBS Sports put it out either yesterday or today of him just kind of going off from CBS Sports desk on Sunday, saying of how it's a complete disrespectful move to coaching as it is. A guy who's never been in a situation like that. But all that to say, to go to the Titans to wrap this up, I'm going to go with Blake on this, just because I'm not going to be shocked, because Vrabel, whoever it is that we line up against, like, we're going to have the Packers, Bengals, and then we got the Eagles. And you know that A.J. Brown's going to want to perform so well that game. And I think the Eagles, did they lose to the Vikings, if I'm remembering that correctly?
They're undefeated still.
They're still undefeated. Good Lord.
The Bills are playing right now.
Bills, that's right. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I did put a pretty big parlay on this one right now. But they're playing the Commanders. It's 14-10 in the second with 3 minutes left, which I'm surprised. But I'm not going to be shocked if the Titans take the Eagles down, and have that convincing win like that. Just doing things they should not be doing. Like I thought that they should lose this game, just like I thought they should lost the last game against Kansas City. But we just continue to find a way. So I guess Chase, the initial question of can they keep losing ugly, or keep winning ugly? I mean, as long as they are winning, yeah, I'm all for it, man. Because I didn't think they'd be 6-3 after that Giants debacle or whatever. From again, we know historically first half to second half where they can make adjustments, and it seems like it's gone the opposite direction in the complete flip-flop. But any last thoughts as far as NFL before we move on for give me some Blake, or give me a Blake?
I'll say if there were ever a week that we did not want a short week going into a game, it would be this week. There are 17 names on the injury list, or on the injury report today, and that is not what you want to see going into Lambeau. The Titans so far this year are 0-2 in prime time, and they've lost their last 2 at Lambeau by a combined score of 95-21. So this is not what you're wanting to see going into this. But Packers are known for that rushing attack, which we're known for stopping. So I think you'll have the classic matchup of a really good run defense versus a prolific run offense. And if we can make them one-dimensional and put it on Aaron Rodgers doesn't seem to be the same guy this year, at least so far. Mm-hmm. So I'm optimistic. It'll be really interesting to see where the injury report moves in the next 2 days.
Yeah.
I'm the opposite of Blake. I'm very pessimistic. It looked like they got their spark back against probably the second best overall defense, maybe besides the Titans. Against the Cowboys yesterday, Christian Watson looked really good for the first time. And I don't like Aaron Rodgers getting all happy and smiling for the first time all year. So as Blake mentioned, this is probably not the best game to have the short week on, but let's get some Blake's takes, baby.
Give me some of that. All right, Blake, you fired up whenever you're ready, and I'll be here, brother.
All right. So we've got to talk about a few things. We know that social media is great for some reasons, and we know that it's absolutely terrible and should not be given to some people. There are several names that immediately come to mind. Hello, Elon. Hello, Kanye. Anyway, it seems as though the hot take has become the commonplace thing. So we actually found some ones to do with our Tennessee Titans, and we're going to start with this one. I have blurred the names to protect the stupid. Imagine how good we would actually be if we had a real owner and management. Truly pathetic coaching staff and GM. All right. What else could you want out of an owner? Bud Adams, there was a lot of trouble during the Bud Adams era, and now that he is no longer around and we have Amy, I have no complaints with the ownership. But as far as like team management, okay, who are you going to go out and get right now that's better than Vrabel? Make an argument for the coordinators, but to say the owner and head coaching is a problem, I mean, somewhere out there is a tree that is tirelessly producing oxygen for this guy, and you owe it an apology. I don't know how in the world you can come out here with that kind of a take. I mean, do you guys agree with me on this?
Oh, yeah.
I think it's funny.
How can you hate the Titans' mom? I mean, really? How?
I actually had somebody in a Twitter mention talking about how, we were throwing shade at the Colts or whatever, and they said, spoken as an Oilers fan, which I was like, first off, thank you for calling us Oilers fans, because that's still somehow a debatable topic amongst the AFC South. But, I mean, for what she's done for the team, for what she's done for the city of Nashville since she's taken over, obviously those jerseys they keep wearing on Sundays look dope as hell. Nashville's exploding. Yeah.
In a new stadium?
Yeah.
Yeah, excuse me. Craig Story, don't remember Bud, but Tommy Smith before Amy, woof. Agreed, man. I'm with you, Blake. That's a 100%. Horrible take.
Yeah, we're looking. People don't remember the hard times, dude. Going to $11 Titans games whenever I wanted.
This is a really good way to spot fair weather fans, by the way. If they make statements like that, they have not been through the bad times like the rest of them.
I'll say this: since our opening question was like, what was the hardest loss? I had to go back, and on ESPN's outline as far as their seasons, it was 0-3, no postseason, maybe 0-5, and then for 10 or 12 years, not a damn look in that direction as far as playoffs, right? Like, people don't remember. And then we're sitting here like, Todd Downing, you suck. It's like, hey, guess what?
Not saying he doesn't.
Right. He does suck.
Both things can exist.
Things can be true.
Yes. But we're still winning.
Have a horrible offensive coordinator. have the best running back in the game, and we cannot find a way to have our tight end catch the ball or whomever it is because Jeff Swaim is trash. Anyways, Blake, you got the spotlight. Keep going, my brother.
Yeah. Let's throw the next take up there.
Let's get it.
We all rooting for a Tannehill career ender today. Now, this is a perfect example that proves that I'm a pharmacist. I'm a doctor. There is no vaccine against stupidity. And this is a great example of that. First off, to wish injury on any kind of player, it's bad enough to wish injury on an opposing player, but to wish it on your starting quarterback? Really? Really? Again, this is somebody who probably hasn't been through the quarterback carousel that this team has been through, where you didn't have a consistent starter from Steve McNair onward, essentially. You have ones that had a good year or two here and there, but my goodness. And that guy was rightfully being flamed on it. I mean, guys like that are the reason that bottles of shampoo have directions printed on them.
And they say to repeat as well. I'll say this much, man. There are still people out there who I promise you, they have receipts. They know dates and times when people were trashing Marcus Mariota, and they are coming at Ryan Tannehill today, praying for his demise, that Malik Willis can come back and get that the bad man that took away Marcus Mariota. If you didn't see the highlight last week of Marcus Mariota fumbling to the ground and trying to get a ball out,
throwing a ball while laying flat on his back,
what do you need to see?
Yeah.
You guys couldn't spot good quarterback play if it smacked you right in the mouth. And you'd probably be like, well, Brett Favre's pretty cool. And we don't want to talk about Brett Favre right now because he's in a world of mess. But, dude, I mean, like you said, Blake, going at somebody saying injury for your own team, it's like, I hope the president loses this and he sucks. We all would have suffered at that point, right? I mean, that's just it's comical. I do think there's a little bit of that Madden-ism in there that if
1,000%.
if Malik just has the opportunity, it's like, no, this team is so much better with Ryan Tannehill. And if you don't know that, wait a season and see what happens.
Yeah.
So
give me a Blake indeed.
Give me a Blake. Let's hit the next one.
Moving on. You kind of foreshadowed this. Look, I know this may be an unpopular opinion, but after watching a quarter of this game, I much prefer Malik Willis. What? Did you watch the last 2 weeks? Malik Willis, 40% completion rate, Malik Willis, 0 touchdown, Malik Willis, 2 fumbles, Malik Willis, passer rating of 41, Malik Willis, over Ryan Tannehill right now. This, I can't. I can't. I granted it was a slow start, but how do you even rationally make this argument right now? There is you can't even say he could effectively run the ball. Did you see the one play he was out there yesterday? He was intending on running the ball and lost the ball. This is a perfect example of diarrhea of the mouth and constipation of a good take.
Hey, I will say Malik Willis's little hand warmer, it was all camo and stuff. It looked pretty cool. That's like the one thing good going for him yesterday. Yeah. Last but not least, for our
this
boy
is the
David.
Worst take of all. This is the worst take of all.
This is it, baby. This is the winner.
Some guy named Jim Irsay says, all you critics, you criticize all of us in the NFL for losing. When we make moves to win, you act so righteous. Who you crapping? Just win, baby. This tweet was so bad, Kanye replied to it and said, hey, you might want to tone it down a bit. The Colts barely survived what were they, 2-6? A 2-6 Raiders team or a 1-6? I forget, one of the two. I think it was a 2-6 Raiders team. When there was a very controversial pass interference call near the end of that game that could have swung it the other way. And you're going to come out with an I told you so because you scraped by the Raiders by 5 points. Really? And I should have queued it up for you to show. I quote tweeted that and I made a beautiful banner for the rafters of Lucas Oil Stadium that said 2022 beat a 2-6 Raiders team. Choose your battles, man. I mean, Jeff Saturday may have beaten the Raiders because, as he himself said, they're terrible. But show me more before you come out here and start acting like you made the right decision here.
Yeah, I'll say this. I've got 3 kids, and my oldest 8-year-old now. There's a line that we've started saying over the last couple of years, and it's read the room, bro. Like, Jim, you are the laughing stock. And here's the thing. I love Jeff Saturday. I love his analysis. I love the old video of him and Peyton yelling at each other on the sideline. Like, hey, stop calling the plays. They're going at it hard. But you know damn well that Jim Irsay is literally throwing anything at the wall that will stick. And here's the thing, Blake. Here's the reason he tweets that stuff. Because he doesn't know the next time he'll have the opportunity to say that. And the unfortunate reality for Colts fans, and David, again, we appreciate you, FTC and all that stuff as a Titans fan. But to watch this team, and again, we've been there. We've had our very own Tommy Smith experience. But the Irsay family, dude, give me a Blake, because that is just trash. It's one of those things that, show some class in how you win. But again, if you beat somebody worth beating, I get it. Hey, pound your chest. You beat him. Yada, yada, yada.
Jim Irsay strikes me as the type of person that the moment they start losing again, he's going to disappear from social media and just eat fish sticks in front of his TV while crying into his beer.
1,000%.
It says something that the fans of that team, I mean, David included, are embarrassed by most of what this guy says. So
it is sad too to think, like, I know he maybe has some substance issues or whatnot, not to throw that out there for him. And my thing is just like, bro, it's bad. And it sucked. What really I hate to see happen is guys like Quentin Nelson, Shaq Leonard, DeForest Buckner have to stay on teams like that because you're sold a bill of goods on this side and you end up on the other side. And again, what does it say about this team? Is it a Frank Reich problem at the time where Jim Irsay is saying to sit Matt Ryan for whatever injury reasons, that if he's injured next year, they have to pay him so much, in so much more in salary or whatever. But Jeff Saturday is like, hey, if you're going to have me come out here, you give me full reign. And if that works for them too, I'll be shocked if the Jeff Saturday experiment, it works. But dude, at the same time, his energy, his ability to lead men, that's where I get a little bit concerned for the sake of like, hey, this guy is a straight up leader of men. But it's also one of those things that if he can get the proper support that any coach would probably properly get the support they need from an owner, which I don't think, since Tony Dungy, who's the last? Shoot, I don't know, man.
Yeah, that's really about it. Yeah.
I mean, he's the one Hall of Fame coach that he's going to come in. Like everybody else is just plebes. Like they're just putting the can out, begging for change. Like, help us.
Yeah.
I just had an interesting thought. Are the Indianapolis Colts the Auburn of the NFL? I mean, they've won the big one. They're relevant most of the time. They've won the big one once or twice
with a quarterback who is who's
a generational talent.
Who's their Andrew Luck though? That's the only thing. It's tough. Like I guess Cam could be their
Cam. I would say
Cam could be their Peyton.
And then instead of the boosters, you have Irsay. Basically pulling the strings and just ruining things for everybody. That's a pretty solid analogy. I think.
It's a very talented roster that can underperform year in, year out.
High preseason hopes and underperform. This is Auburn.
Yeah.
This is Auburn.
Auburn, Texas won.
I want to respond to David's comment because he says, honestly, Jim Irsay has made mostly the right football moves up until now. Like I said last week, this move with Saturday is something his dad would have done. A couple of years ago, Chris Ballard and Frank Reich were the combo of GM and head coach. And what in the world happened with that? Because I don't think this has happened overnight. Not that you're exactly implying that, but up until now, I mean, prior to 3 weeks ago, or since the Titans really swept them and they lost or whatever it was, like they've been overhyped, and Dan Orlovsky's been picking them annually for the AFC South, and he just can't get it right. And here he is, like, I listen to them on taking my kids to school. Him and Keyshawn Johnson just sound like complete buffoons this morning, debating about whatever. But I got to throw. Here's the truth of it. If Jim Irsay never hit Luck, and if he never hit Peyton, this is what the Colts franchise would have been since they came back from Baltimore.
Yeah, and they ran Luck out of there because they wouldn't help him.
And he, speaking of money, not wanting to pay quarterbacks with Matt Ryan, they ended up paying him full salary that year after he quit third preseason game. It's like, that's telling too. I mean, hey, do I really feel like I have your support from a quarterback to look at the owner? bro, I'm not going to go to bat for Jim Irsay.
No way.
You know what I'm saying? It's what have you done for me lately? It's like, what is this guy doing that's helping this team, period? So we could go.
Carson Wentz out of town while very publicly like raking him over the coals.
Yep.
And then bringing in Matt Ryan, who has not worked out for the most part.
Great point.
The next thing you know, they're going to bring in Russell Wilson. He's going to be next. The decaying veteran tour of quarterbacks through Indianapolis.
Well, Craig said Colts had Bill Polian holding them together for years, 100%. And again, this is to go back to throwing some shade and give me some Blake here. The Titans owner, GM, and again, John Robinson, he's made his whiffs, he's made his issues, but Mike Vrabel, I mean, we have so much to be grateful for as far as leadership. So, any other thoughts as far as NFL before we put a bow on this, guys?
No. Big game Thursday night.
Big game Thursday night.
We're going to learn a lot about this team in the few weeks to come between the Packers and then having the long week off and not playing this weekend and then coming back with the Bengals and following it up with the Eagles. So, we're going to know a lot whether this team is a fan or if we're really fans or frauds.
That's right.
Yeah. This is the good nitty-gritty time for football too. Like college and pro. This is where you find out a lot. Playoff picture's really starting to come into play, but the biggest thing possible to give all the normal funny guys out there more hope. Pete Davidson has racked up another absolute smoke show in Emily Ratajkowski. So add that to the list of if you're funny, tall, lanky, and like just kind of a little weird, dude, you got a shot.
I did see something about like Pete Davidson with some magazine shared his secret of how he reels all supermodels or whatever. But anyways,
it's called money.
Yeah,
it's called lots of money and being funny. He's funny,
really funny.
You can charm him. But hey, if you're new to us, chat10.com, as Chase mentioned, he'll have an article up soon, and we will be contributing there throughout. If you're in Chattanooga, Tennessee, Thursday night, 7:20 social hour at Tailgate Brewery in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Chat10.com, but also Chattanooga Titans fans anywhere on social. Chat, CHATT, Titans fans. Shout out to those guys. Devin Wolf for getting Bryce, our super fan from Chattanooga, up this weekend. The Titans, man. I was able to message with Bryce and talk to Devin. Man, what an incredible scene. I was telling my daughter about it, like, incredible scene for him to meet Vrabel, Tannehill, Henry, like have the sideline access and pass. So kudos to the Titans. Kudos to the Chattanooga Titans fans, for Haley, for Mr. Titan, everybody coming around Bryce to do that. And of course, Devin, love our guy getting in there and making it happen for him as well. But if you're here Thursday night, 7:20 Tailgate Brewery, come out and watch the game. It's going to be a blast. Second floor takeover. Go ahead, Blake.
And don't forget, if you haven't heard, if you come to these games up until the Eagles game, every watch party you attend, you can earn an entry to win a pair of Titans tickets on Christmas Eve to watch them face the Texans. So pretty big deal. And you never know. We have giveaways. We do things that we don't announce. This weekend, we may take up a collection to send Todd Downing to Canada. Who knows? Who knows? You just got to be there.
He'd be a great CFL coach. I'll say that much. But hey, appreciate you guys listening. Wherever you're watching, subscribe, hit the bell, do all the good stuff. Make sure and follow us on social media as well. But we appreciate it. We will see you guys on Thursday, maybe a little bit before then. We'll see you after the game.
We'll figure it out.
Have a great rest of the week and keep an eye on social for announcements. Thanks a lot. What's up, everybody? Welcome into a brand new episode of Chat 10 Sports, where we're talking all things Tennessee